Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series, novels, and films. For this episode, we're off to a time and place oozing with style, with a cast of characters who can beguile, or even be downright vile, and a few twists to leave you in denial. That's right, we're talking 2022's Death on the Nile. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stephen Ford, joined as always by Andrew Knuckles.
Hello.
And Joel Killingsworth.
Hello, hello.
Oh, we doubled up. Oh no.
I finally made him break.
No, I did the exact same thing. I just did it twice.
We're only going to pay you for one.
We get paid?
It's volunteer work.
What's the old joke about the Roadrunner? They only paid her to record one meep and they
yeah.
played it twice.
Yeah.
Oh, well, anyways, as we alluded to earlier, we're going to be talking Death on the Nile.
The new one, because there is one from 1974?
I'm pretty sure that's Murder on the Orient Express from
1973? There is another Death on the Nile.
I think it might be 78.
It could be 78.
I think Murder on the Orient Express. It has a little
loop on the end when I saw it today, and I may have gotten the numbers wrong.
Joel's on the case.
Yes.
But anyways, while we're double checking
I can't spell apparently.
And it is based on the Agatha Christie novel.
Correct.
Of the same name.
Yes. Following the...
78 is the previous one.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Wow.
There's a reason I put the year in there when I said that.
There's a reason I put the year in there.
It's almost like I knew what I was doing. All right. Anyway, back to the plot. Mountain Dew was a mistake. So we're going to be talking 2022's Death on the Nile. But before we jump into that, because we love them so much, we're going to have a little chat about boat films. That's right.
Just
emphasis
boat films.
On the boat.
Well, not necessarily emphasis on specifically the boat itself.
No.
But the majority of the film has to take place.
Boat.
No, oh my gosh. But the majority of the film has to take place on a boat. Preferably,
or other nautical conveyance.
Around or with a boat.
Correct. Like, so you could, if you wanted to pick a submarine film, that's
that
okay. That is technically a boat. It's just a boat that is underwater, that is not sunk.
Yet. So I'm most curious for what Joel picked.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, like, mine's probably pretty easy. Maybe. I don't know.
So I'm gonna...
My choice is an enigma wrapped inside a mystery.
Well,
and
that
bacon?
means you get to start.
And bacon.
Awesome. Joel, you're going first.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's unwrap this here mystery.
And the bacon.
Now we're eating the bacon, and then we're unwrapping the mystery. And the mystery is Sphere.
Ooh.
Sneaky.
The book or the film?
The film.
Oh, man. God, that's a good choice. That's one of my favorite books. I mean, it's also a good movie, but that's one of my favorite books.
Right. So Sphere is actually more of a horror film than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And it involves this crew of specially selected individuals who, and so like the opening of the film kind of has almost your heist film feel to it, because it's a whole bunch of specialists in different fields being specially selected for this mission. And they go in a submarine down to a wreck on the bottom of the ocean where they encounter an artifact of unknown origin that begins messing with their heads, and horrific shenanigans ensue.
Yeah. The book has Dustin Hoffman, and
the book has
Dustin
Hoffman.
That's a really cool book.
The film has Dustin Hoffman and
it's a
Samuel L.
pop-up.
Jackson.
You open it,
you turn the page. Whoop.
There he is. There's Dustin Hoffman.
It's really thick, though. It's like 4 feet tall.
It's like the Harry Potter.
I feel like they got
a full scale Dustin Hoffman.
Well,
no, like 1 to 2
still,
scale.
No, it's still 500 pages. They're just all pop up. It was a technical marvel, but something of a mistake.
Your scientists spent so much time asking if they could. They never asked if they should.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, Sphere's.
We've broken Andrew.
Oh man. You make one mistake one time and they never forget.
Like jackals.
So Sphere is a great book, and it's unfortunately the film actually got panned pretty hard by critics, mostly because they cut out a lot of the book.
There was like the ending of the film itself feels really like, okay, we've just got to end this thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to really making a salient point.
Yeah. Yeah, because they spent so much time with all of like the fantastical things that kind of happen early on in the book that are horrific. And then kind of the final act is just kind of like, okay, problem. That's the fix. And then now they're up there and now they're fine.
Yeah.
And but I still really like the film a lot.
Yeah, but if you enjoy, I'll say supernatural horror,
and it's not graphic.
No, not
really.
Not really. No. So like it's like if you're.
Joel is thinking.
He's thinking.
I'm thinking.
Ding ding.
I was trying to think. What's the Event Horizon? That was the
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's a fairly decent comp with Event Horizon, except that Event Horizon is a lot more graphic.
Yes.
Yeah. The Sphere is basically like PG level. There's only like one or two scenes that are like actually relatively graphic.
I mean, alternatingly, things are either burning or they are drowning. So like that's more or less what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Stephen, what did you pick?
Well, I was going to jump off of that actually because you mentioned the fact that it didn't have a great critical reception.
Mm-hmm.
So also a film that did not have a great critical reception. I'm choosing Hook.
Yeah, I never understood that, and that's also another Dustin Hoffman film.
It is, and also Dustin Hoffman.
Is, yes.
But so it has a 29% critics rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I've never understood that. Why?
Critics are idiots. So anyways, this is our review on
yes.
But no, I don't get it. I mean, it's so Hook is it's Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, a bunch of other names.
Sandra Bullock.
No.
You
were so close, but you were so far at the same time.
Not Sandra Bullock, the other one.
That isn't Sandra Bullock.
Julia Roberts.
That would be not Sandra Bullock. Yes. That's correct.
Bob Hoskins.
I'm not
going
to lie.
Smith.
They're very similar.
Are they?
Yes.
No.
They?
I agree with him. They look nothing alike, and yet they are the same person at the same time.
Okay. Well, if you take
they
looks out of it, then I don't have as big of an objection.
They both play most of the time kind of the same characters.
Well, they competed for basically the same roles in the same era.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see it from that perspective.
Yeah, they're the two big names of that era.
Right. So they would be going back and forth in the same kind of film.
Anyways.
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay.
So Hook, Robin Williams at his peak. Like this is peak Robin Williams on screen for me.
Yeah, because this was 94?
91.
91.
Yeah. Basically a older Peter Pan who doesn't know that he is Peter Pan or has forgotten.
That's kind of the whole shtick of Neverland.
Shtick of how it works, yeah. Captain Hook comes back for his revenge and kidnaps his children.
Captain Hook, of course, has not aged because he is in Neverland.
In Neverland, where you never age. And Peter has to go to save his children and learn about his past, and hijinks ensue.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's just such a powerhouse of that era of film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's a big nostalgia piece for me, right? 91.
Yeah.
What 8, 9?
Mm-hmm.
So wheelhouse for me, and it is also not very graphic, although people do die.
There are stabbings.
There are stabbings.
Swashbuckling occurs.
Yes, there's piracy. They have fights on a boat.
Yeah,
which is my tenuous
connection here.
The boat doesn't
move.
The boat does not move under its own power. However, it is very central because there's essentially Captain Hook's castle that they storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the assault on the boat is pretty critical, and a lot of it takes place there.
Yeah.
It also has a cameo by Glenn Close.
Yes.
She is the pirate
the
that
one
gets
that gets
put in the boom
scorpioned.
box at the start in the tiny box.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's Glenn Close.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and just I don't know if she just really wanted to do, but yeah, that's.
I mean, sometimes that just happens.
Yeah, no, it's very random.
Hey, do you want to be in this film, be put into a box, and never be seen again?
Yeah, and no speaking lines.
As just like a sniveling pirate henchman.
Yep. who said Captain Hook couldn't do it. It couldn't be done. Anyways, moving on to Andrew. What you got?
So my film was critically received.
Oh boy. Look at Mr. Hoity-toity
over here.
Oh,
Look
boy.
You got some credentials. You got an Oscar over there?
It does actually probably.
See, now you've delayed everything.
Yeah,
I don't know.
What is it? We can look it up. Just go ahead.
So this is the 1975 Spielberg classic, Jaws.
Jaws.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's got to have.
Yeah, there's no way it doesn't. I don't know. I don't know how the Oscars pick their stuff. All I know is that they snub anime all the time, so I just
well, it's so okay. So this is it's also, you could have relayed this too because it's also a John Williams score. Hook is also a John Williams score.
I was going to say that
it won an Oscar for Best Original Score, Best Sound Mixing, Best Film Editing, and was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah. So the majority of the climax of the film obviously takes place on a boat, and is kind of the quotation marks quintessential man versus nature, which is ultimately just man versus man, or man versus himself. Is generally kind of how
maybe
it goes.
I still posit that's a generality that doesn't necessarily hold for the entire genre. But
no, man was not required to go out on a boat. He did so because he chose so, because it was something that could be conquered.
Okay, so like,
let me give the synopsis of the movie.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so it is a vacation town off the coast of the Atlantic, and
Massachusetts.
Yeah, and it is basically 4th of July, or the weekend of 4th of July, kind of thing. So big. Normally, it's a big tourist town. So this is the one time of the year that they get a lot of tourists come in. They get a lot of income. Very important that people have a good time, right?
Right. Big, so they can be a shark buffet.
Correct. And so this great white shark decides that it is a great time for him to have lots of food. Unfortunately, that for the inhabitants and the tourists of this small town, that is not good for them. And
it's a shark eat man world out there.
Yeah, and hijinks ensue.
Yep.
and basically at the end of the film, there are a couple of essentially shark hunters that are not really good shark hunters that fight the shark.
All right,
that is Jaws,
but they don't jump it.
They do not. They do not jump the shark. Because look, honestly, like this film, even if you watch it now, if you've never seen it, it's relatively graphic. I mean, it's definitely rated R, but it is also not necessarily a scary film unless you're just scared of sharks. And this is, it's kind of one of those things where if you watch it when you're young, you're probably going to be scared of sharks for a while.
This is one of those films that teach you about how swimming is bad.
There is a reason why I don't go swimming in the Atlantic. I don't like sharks, and I don't like jellyfish.
There's also a reason why you don't go to dinosaur-themed parks where they have live specimens.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's essentially what going into the ocean is.
Yeah.
No, it is.
But yeah, Jaws is a great film. If you have not seen it, if you have seen it, then you should go watch it again. It's great.
I just love that my favorite fact from that film is we're gonna need a bigger boat is a improvised line. Because it was a joke thrown around by the whole crew the entire time they were filming. Because every time that they would go out to film, they have to have a boat to film the boat.
Yeah. And
they're all just packed on this boat. And like, we need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think that pretty well covered some boat films. There are many. There's
actually a lot of boat films.
We had a pre-show discussion about this where there are a lot of films that take place on boats
that could be considered boat films,
or yes, by the most tenuous of circumstances.
Like you have the one Pirates of the Caribbean film,
the only one they made,
the only one they made
in existence.
Then you have Titanic, you have Star Wars.
Stop!
I had to get a reference in there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure I can find a way to shoehorn it in there.
Much time,
so many opportunities, and I'm going to take this opportunity to move us along into the main point of this episode, which is 2022's Death on the Nile. Here we go. So we're going to kick this off. Joel, would you like to give us a synopsis? The unexpected, expected synopsis.
Death on the Nile. So this is an adaptation of Agatha Christie's novel by the same name. And so we have our hero, Hercule Poirot, who is played by Kenneth Branagh, and this is actually a sequel to the previous Murder on the Orient Express, which was also starred by Kevin Branagh. And Kenneth Branagh. Sorry. And we catch up with Poirot as he meets up with his friend at the pyramids in Cairo, and gets invited to go on this wedding party as they are just kind of touring Egypt.
Mhm.
And as happens around Poirot, intrigue occurs, and there is a suspicion of intent to do harm, as a slighted lover of the husband in the match continues to follow them as they go, and death and hijinks ensue.
Murderous hijinks
Yep.
ensue.
It is in the title. People do die.
Yeah,
Yep, it happens.
If you tune into the movie expecting that everyone is going to live, you're going to be in for a shock, because its first word is death on the Nile. So what did we give this for a score? So this is our composite score. The three of us aggregated together based across the 4 pillars of review: the spectacle, the performance, the score, and the plot.
So we gave this film an 8.1 for its technical score. So
That
very
is
solid.
Yeah.
And then moving on to entertainment, because
Mhm.
we kind of break that out, because you could thoroughly enjoy poor films.
It'll happen one time, I promise.
It could. You could thoroughly enjoy terrible films. You could really be uninterested in technical masterpieces.
Mhm.
In this case, our entertainment score barely changed at an 8.3. So overall,
Oh, an increase.
technically very good. As far as enjoyment goes, also very good.
Yeah, slight improvement there. One day that's going to split dramatically, but that day is not today.
I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with how our general like technical review works,
Mhm.
is because we split it up into basically 4 quadrants. It's very rare that you're going to have a movie or a series or a book or whatever that just doesn't meet at least one of those in a decent fashion.
Mhm.
Oh, we can find some.
Well,
They
also-
Oh,
exist.
no, they
Also-
definitely exist.
Also, I feel like averaging between the three of us, we typically, it's rare that we all agree on something in a statistically aberrant direction.
Right.
Yeah.
We generally speaking, we either all really like it or we're like mixed.
Mhm.
It's very rare where one person's like, "Oh, I love this," and someone else is just slamming the crap out of it.
I can recall one.
Yes, there were. I think we may have had 2 episodes.
Turning Red was,
where it
was
just-
probably the biggest
where
variation.
but it ended up pulling everything towards the middle anyway. So
Yeah.
like
That's kind of how aggregate's supposed to work. though.
exactly. So
Almost
there
how
you
it
go.
works.
It's doing its job.
So currently,
Anyways.
we are still proceeding under the theory that one day we will have a very different entertainment score
It
than
will
technical
be, it will
score.
be divergent, and we're not doing that movie.
We're not doing that
doing
movie.
that movie. Anyways, so what? We're still spoiler free here,
Mhm.
so everything is safe.
General thoughts.
Some general thoughts and opinions on the movie.
So I felt like this film, and I'm actually going to, all cards on the table, I have not seen Murder on the Orient Express.
The new one?
The new one, yeah, that Kenneth Branagh
Yeah,
also
the
starred in.
Same one. Have you, Andrew?
No, I have not.
But
Oh, we're all in the same boat. None of us have seen
all
2017's
in the same
Murder on
boat.
the
Okay, so but seeing this film makes me really want to go back and watch that one. 'cause
it does.
Same, yes,
I
absolutely.
very much enjoyed this representation of Poirot, and I didn't think that I was going to, because the first thing that struck me as I saw the costume design for Poirot is that is a mustache.
Boy, is it ever.
And it just seemed so over the top and so ridiculous that it just put me off. Me not really realizing and making the connection that was how the character is described all along in the books, is that
they toned it down quite a bit in the 70s.
yeah, with the David Suchet.
Yeah, where he has a little curly Q.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's very,
so he's
very
like,
understated.
So in the old David Suchet representations of Poirot, he is very particular about the mustache, and he's almost neurotic about the mustache, but it's not a ridiculous mustache in and of itself.
Yeah, where this Poirot is ridiculous.
Yeah. So the main thing that I liked about this representation that I felt was new and fresh was the fact that they took pains to give Poirot a character arc during
Yeah,
the film.
I really
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, they gave him much more of a humanizing element.
Mhm.
hmm
And so there were elements that they added to the plot which were personally connected to Poirot himself, which gave him not only pulled the audience deeper into the story because the main character is more connected to the events, but it also provides a way for him to learn and grow and for you to understand him more as an individual person disconnected from the goings on of this affair. And that was very satisfying.
Yeah. And like towards the end of the film, like there's some like truly like emotionally resonant moments with him. Like, you know, towards the end of the climax of the film where, you know, you're just like, if they wouldn't have like kind of elaborated on his character any, like you probably wouldn't really feel anything at all. Even if he would have had the same level of acting and performance with it, there just wouldn't be anything there.
Right. He'd just be the enigmatic genius detective that you can't relate to because he's not really human.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is I've seen, and also when people have read the book, because this is reasonably, it's not the same as the book.
Yeah.
They took a lot of book characters and condensed them into the characters we get in this movie.
Well, and I think whenever you do like I'll say a mystery book, you have to just kind of like maybe change who the final killer is.
Well, I think it's particularly easy to do that with Agatha Christie because the way that she writes mystery novels, any one of them could have done it from the beginning.
They all have a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going.
Oh, sorry. I completely just like
railroaded
you out of that.
Complaints. So I've seen complaints about the book and also the movie too of, well, I don't need Poirot's backstory. I don't need to know anything about him. But I think it's kind of neat. The little, especially the start where it's World War I and it's all black and white. Yeah, perfect. Do more of that in movies, please.
So I'll say this. Whenever I feel that a lot of the actual technical construction of the film, besides the actual cinematography, was not that great.
Oh no, I agree there.
So the beginning part that happens in the film is in black and white, but it's really just monochrome. There's a big difference between black and white and monochrome, and where basically they just desaturated the film that they shot in color. Where black and white has a completely different style of texture. And I wish that whoever was doing this either would have pushed for it or would have known to do it a different way.
And obviously everything's digital these days. They're not filming on real film, but the choice was there. Like it's not one of those things like, oh, we already filmed it in color in the can and the best we can do is desaturate. Like you have the option. It's definitely still available digitally.
The other biggest issue that I had, again, was more technical, was they unfortunately couldn't shoot in Egypt at all. For whatever reason, either it's money or Egyptian government doesn't want people shooting there.
The production on this was impacted by COVID.
Yes.
So Orient Express came out in 2017, and this was slated to come out
2021,
late 2019 into 2020.
Oh, okay.
And so it had been like moved back to like an early 2020, and then they kept having issues. Spilled out.
But so with them not being able to shoot in Egypt on location, there is a lot of very wide sweeping shots of the Egyptian landscape from the
37.
1930s. And of course, because World War I. Yeah. Anyways, but a lot of the CGI is unfortunately not that great, and it definitely will take you out of the film if you're not necessarily prepared for it. Now, that doesn't mean that the rest of the film is not worth watching, because it absolutely is. There was definitely, because I'm not familiar with the novel, and there was definitely a lot of times where I'm like, oh, it's totally him. Nope, definitely not him.
Well, I have a passing familiarity with the novel. I read it about 10 years ago, but it was vague enough, and there were enough changes that I was completely in the same boat.
Yeah, there are a tremendous number of changes, honestly, in terms of like who the characters are.
Oh, okay.
So, Book doesn't exist in that book.
Okay, so they just add him in there.
Well, he takes the place of just a generic, like Colonel Rankin, I think is his name, something like that.
Oh,
just
okay.
Another character,
just a person that Poirot knows.
Yeah,
cool.
Who would have supported.
Yeah.
So basically, they carried him over from Orient. I think he's a character in Orient Express.
Oh, so then that would make stuff
right.
A little
that's
more.
That's why they know each other, and he is a character in that book. but he doesn't come over to.
Oh, okay.
So I've read Orient Express.
Well,
I don't think I've read Death on the Nile, but it also felt familiar watching it.
Well, now I want to go watch the other film.
I really want to go watch.
It's
the first one.
It's the own murder MCU. A shared universe of murders.
Murder MCU. It's literally an MCU murder cinematic universe.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
You got it.
This is kind of like what they went for with League of Gentlemen, the monster cinematic. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, so I can confirm that Tom Bateman is credited as playing Book in Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, cool.
But he actually is, like, that's a character in the book.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, they pulled him over.
Pulled him
yeah.
in.
Yeah. Because, like, the cast in the book is much bigger than the movie. So they kind of combine characters down to make it,
and it was still, there was a lot going on.
There's a
very information-packed scenes all the way through. So,
but they did a really good job at keeping the information consumable, where it didn't feel like they were just throwing information at you, and if you didn't pick it up, well, it's too bad. So sorry.
Because the way that they conveyed the information is not just the companion saying, "Oh, that's who this is, and they're related in this way, and that's who this is, and they're related in this way." And there are those scenes, but you also got scenes of the characters acting out their relationship to the central characters that are important, and so that you could absorb it and internalize it.
While Poirot is just sitting in a chair off to the side, and he's overhearing these conversations, and he's picking up information, kind of a natural.
Yeah, instead of inserting him into the scene and being a central part of the dialogue and everything, and then be like, "This is this person," where like you just get to see a natural interaction from his perspective,
which
or to him just in the background,
which they managed to make part of his characterization as well, because he's very reserved and he removes himself from interaction with other people until he has an objective, and that's when he inserts himself.
And he's pretty aggressive for Poirot. I feel like. I'm not super familiar with the Agatha Christie
I don't
version
have
of him.
Great point of reference there.
Yeah, so like Poirot is an aggressive investigator from the books, but he's not as trying to think of a good adjective that doesn't give too much away.
Belligerent?
Yeah. He's
or badgering. He's kind of badgering.
He is more badgering, I think, in this representation than in most, certainly than in the David Suchet.
Well, because in those, like he's a little bit more subdued. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Right, and in this one, he's portrayed, because in that one, he's just like, well, maybe he's just weird because he is foreign and doesn't fit into the culture that's being represented. Whereas in this one, it's very clear that he has neuroses. And then when he has something that he's going after, he's extremely aggressive.
Yeah. Just to echo to Andrew's point, I do think the cinematography is a little weak. There were a lot of opportunities for shots that just are kind of missed.
But then there are also some really fantastic shots when they finally get on the boat.
Yeah, once you get really tight and personal, there are some good shots.
There's some really good shots,
but I think they missed some moments, and some of it may just be the location that they weren't allowed to. Or able to.
Unfortunately, everything was shot essentially on a soundstage. And with that comes a lot of limitations. Most of the time, you're going to see a lot of green screen. You're going to see if there is going to be a set, it's going to be very clearly a set.
Right. But I will say though, the setting is good looking. Like it has a good feel for that era and kind of the wealth and luxury that's associated with the characters. And they do a good job, as I think Joel mentioned, there's a lot of info dump where you have to pick up on who these characters are, but they do a very good job of making almost all the characters very distinct. There's not really a moment of, wait, which one is she? Like, whether it be how they dress or how they behave, they are all.
Everyone could probably pass the silhouette test.
I think so.
I think the closest issue might be that you have the former industrialist lady who is like giving her money away, and then also the Book's mother, the painter. Those were the two closest ones that I sometimes was like,
but their behavior is very distinct. So if you just watch them for a moment, even if they don't pass the silhouette test, if you just watch them for a moment, it's
but no out of all the people, for just having that little bit of overlap, everyone else is pretty well distinct. So it helps a lot, I think.
Good day, fellow travelers. The captain has just informed me that spoilers will be visible on the west bank of the river in just a few moments. If that is something that would strain the sensibilities, then may I suggest returning to your cabin? Before you go, if you like what you heard, check out our other content at spoilersintendedpodcast.com. But if, like me, you are looking forward to this most edifying experience, then let us sit together and prepare to use our little grey sails.
Alrighty, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that little intermission because we are back. And in case you didn't get the message, it is all spoilers all the time from here on out.
The boat has set sail.
And someone might die.
Joel. Maybe.
I haven't spoken yet. I might be dead.
No. I think we're okay.
Okay.
Anyways.
So far.
Wait, no, that's the wrong theme song. Moving forward into our first breakdown of our scoring. So we are looking at the spectacle. So this is your cinematography, the things that make you go, wow.
The feel, the emotion of the film.
Yeah, setting's going to play a big part in this one as well. And Andrew, you're going to go first.
Sure. Okay, so I gave Spectacle a 7.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that just overall, and I kind of said this in the pre-spoiler, or the no spoiler section of the show, is the cinematography is really good, but the technical achievement of the film is not that great.
Mm-hmm.
There's, unfortunately, because of COVID and maybe just because of production costs and everything, they unfortunately could not film on location in Egypt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when, now granted, this is 1937, so they'd have to do a ton of digital compositing and stuff to do it. And maybe that was part of the cost that went along with it.
Yeah, it was like, if we sent them there and we still have to do a green screen CGI, why don't we just do
it that
CGI
way?
to start with? Yeah.
So a lot of the CGI, there are some actually really beautiful sweeping shots of the Egyptian landscape that do happen throughout the film that are actually very pretty, even if it's fake. But then you have these kind of more intimate shots, especially when they go to the temple of Abu Simbel, excuse me. And it is just not, it just doesn't feel real by any means at all.
No.
And it takes you right out of the scene. But on the other hand, there are some really fantastic cinematography shots when they're on the boat in these really intimate kind of dialogue scenes, to where the actors are on one side of the glass and the camera's on the other, and they're kind of panning, and the glass is multifaceted angles. So whenever it's going by, you see like kind of the reflections and
you get like double images.
Yes, it's really cool. And they do that a couple times, and clearly they were like, "Ooh, this works. We have to do this a lot," and they do it a lot. But in the film itself, like it does look very good. But unfortunately, just a lot of the green screening really kind of pulled me out on scenes where it shouldn't have.
Yeah, there's a bit where it's kind of like the end of the day and they pull you away from the boat and they just have like this crocodile leap out of the water and like snatch a bird. And it's just kind of like, I know you're going for like
we need that?
This metaphor of like death amidst beauty, but like at the same time, there had to be a better way to CGI this, right?
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and take it.
Yeah, go for it.
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And I'm going to pick up what you just said because that was one of my huge positives. Is they a couple of times where they had the alligator snatching the bird, they had a fish eating a smaller fish.
No.
There was an underwater one.
Yeah, so spoilers.
Clearly you were wrong,
the
Joel.
Fish,
apparently.
No, because Laura and I debated this and we rewound it to double check. The fish is not grabbing it. That's what I assumed because they'd already done it. It's actually the wadded up handkerchief that has the gun in it that he throws overboard. So it's the scarf and stuff that they pull back up.
But anyway, I thought that because I really enjoyed the reminder to keep up the tension in the audience of the violence is about to happen. Don't get cozy because death is just around the corner and here's some for you to watch.
No, I love the idea of that, but yes, it's very beautiful and luxurious, but here's the death. The actual CGI of the crocodile was not good. And it was a little off-putting.
I mean, like I actually didn't look up the budget for this film, but like
There are limitations.
Like there are definitely limitations, and it's one of those things where I don't really, because of the genre of the film, I don't think it really matters. Because it was still like it was never egregious enough because it was just consistent the whole time of like there is CGI here, there is always going to be CGI here. So once you get used to that, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
But
Steven?
I thought you were looking at budget.
Well, I was. IMDb has an estimated budget of $55 million.
That's quite low.
It's actually pretty low.
Yeah.
So
they really saved money not sending them to Egypt.
yes, they did.
So I gave Spectacle an 8, mostly because I felt like the era and the luxury that they hit, the tone of that and the feel of that they hit consistently, from the nightclub to the kind of like wedding venue hotel to the actual boat,
which was
itself.
beautiful.
All of that was just, and that was, as far as I know, just all CGI. But like it had the feel for that post World War I, pre World War II. Sure, there's been a depression, but like these are like the ultra wealthy,
where it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're just kind of above that sense, and they're not. As you learn throughout the movie, there are people who are not immune to it. But the core group is, and just kind of that reflection. And I thought that was great. I think that hit really well. I like that kind of. I hesitate to call it a period piece because I don't know if you really consider it. I
wouldn't really consider it a period piece.
But it's the same sort of feel that you get from other. I mean, totally different movie, but like The Mummy, right? It's the same era of Egypt, the same setting and stuff, and it has the exact same kind of feel. And that's, for some people, maybe that would be a negative, but for me, that's a good thing. Like that you're coming through, and it felt consistent throughout. So that was probably my biggest selling point.
Yeah,
and then. Yeah, like you already took it from me. The good shots through the glass, and there's a couple shots through kind of like a grating or like a wire. They have a couple of those scattered in. The boat itself was like a really good piece of scenery because they could kind of move around it. Sometimes really just like, oh, I'm just a person walking down the place I'm supposed to be, and other times putting the camera in places where you wouldn't naturally be.
Yeah, I will say the boat felt smaller, or basically much larger than it felt when you looked at it from the outside. Like all of the rooms that they were in felt too large for a boat.
Yeah.
But then whenever you zoomed out, I was like, that boat looks really small.
But it's also really hard to get a good sense of space when you consider that the camera has to be in the space.
Yeah.
And so it just, for me, I always find that it's hard to judge how large a space is just from the camera shot.
But also
inside.
there's not that many people on that boat. Like
that is true.
It may look small from the outside, but it's definitely not running at full capacity. They have it to themselves for that stretch, which is kind of a key point.
Yeah.
So I guess I think we've pretty well hit it there.
Yeah.
So moving forward on to the performance. So this is, what are we getting from these actors on screen?
I started. You get to go.
Oh, I'm going to go first here? All right.
I'm curious.
I gave it an 8.
Okay.
I think there are several really good performances. I can't pronounce anybody's name because I will just brutalize it. But Branagh?
Kenneth?
Oh, Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, as Poirot, I think he was really good.
Yeah.
I think Gal Gadot is
Gal
Gadot. See, like I said, I'm not pronouncing his name right. Is a really wonderful choice up to a point because, spoilers, at some point you just kind of lose her as a character, and that actually kind of hurts them a little bit.
Well, so she's honestly a fantastic actress, but then she also has just this air of wealth because she plays an Amazonian woman.
Yeah. Well, I think in this one she pulls off the timeless beauty kind of thing really well. Maybe if I want to throw in, a negative here, I don't, and it's not even performance wise, but I just don't know. I really didn't expect Armie Hammer to still be getting work in Hollywood after his scandal type stuff that came out. So I was really shocked just to see him on screen. Oh, what are you doing
there
here?
He is.
And you're kind of scummy, and I guess that's good for you. But what are you doing here?
Well, I don't know how long ago it was whenever all that happened. It's possible that he was already cast and they were already done with a lot of the filming.
And he's just in there. And that's true, because this was a really stretched out production because of COVID.
Yeah.
So that one really threw me. There's another one that I would mention, but I'm gonna let y'all take a crack at it first.
Okay, Joel can go, I guess.
Yeah, so I thought that the kind of the primary four characters, Jacqueline de Belfort, Simon Doyle, Bouc, and Poirot, I thought all of those performances were really, really good.
No, they were really good.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like the supporting cast weren't shouldering nearly as much as those four. And whereas most of those were also really good, I guess I skipped over saying what I gave it, but I gave it a 9 out of 10. And I thought that out of the supporting cast, really special mention ought to be made for Annette Bening and Sophie Okonedo, and that was Bouc's mother, and then the mother of his love interest.
Right.
Those two actresses. I thought
Otterborn.
The performer Salome.
Yes.
Yes.
Otterborn is her last name.
Yeah.
But I would.
Which is a cool last name.
I would actually disagree with you, and I'd say that I think Gal Gadot was one of the weaker parts of the film. Because she to me came across as someone pretending to be a person, as opposed to coming across as that person. And she was pretending really well, but like she still felt like she was pretending.
Well, for you, it's a gain then that she was removed from consideration.
Well, I mean, I actually agree. I had her down as kind of one of the weaker aspects of the film, just because she fits the visual of this, very high wealth, elegant, timeless, beauty. But she also kind of does have wide eyes a lot of times whenever especially when she's talking to Poirot, where it just doesn't really feel like there's a lot, like she's kind of more talking at him.
Right.
Kind of thing. Anyway, you can continue. I was just agreeing.
No, so I was going to say my other complaint was in the portrayal of the love interest by Letitia Wright. She was just, I don't know. She was a sassy and aggressive character. And that was appropriate because she was managing her aunt's business.
Yeah.
And so she's interfacing with people trying to make sure she doesn't get cheated and gets her money and all this stuff. So that makes sense and it was appropriate for the character, but the way that she did it didn't feel like it belonged in that movie. It was just a big tonal shift from everything else, including the way that her aunt was aggressive, because her aunt was very aggressive too, but in a more refined way. So that I don't think was necessarily a performance issue as much as it was a style disagreement.
Maybe like a directing choice or something in there. Andrew?
Yeah. Okay, so Joel kind of took a lot of my points, but I gave it a 9 out of 10. I honestly thought pretty much the core cast was fantastic. I really liked Bouc's character. He, especially at the end, just the kind of tragedy of him, trying to make a life for himself and his love interest out of, unfortunately a crime of opportunity, and then being unceremoniously killed by Jacqueline. Just feels, it definitely felt really bad because I didn't see it coming at all.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, I don't want this.
And that pulls you as the audience and Poirot's character deeper into it, which is
it's a
really
twist
good
to put you in denial.
Well, because so basically up to this point, Death on the Nile, we already know someone's going to die.
Yeah.
So
and it's happened.
So the first person dies, Gal Gadot. You're like, okay, we know that someone's going to die. It just had to be her. Go figure, because she's the rich person that everyone has a connection to. That's kind of how it works. Then I was like, it's got to be the maid. Has to be the maid. Maid dies. I'm like, it's not the maid. I guess it's the husband. And then, so whenever he's having the interview with Book and the husband there,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, well, it's clearly not the husband
Yeah.
because he's here. And then Book gets shot, and I'm like, oh no, I have no idea who it could be.
Yeah.
Because, like at this point, and this is what made the movie really fun for me was that, because Jacqueline had already been essentially, oh my gosh,
removed from
removed from suspicion,
kind of rehabilitated almost.
Yeah. And so you're like, well, it can't be her.
Mhm.
And, then obviously it was. But so I really thought Salome's character was just great. Like she really fit the deep South, like Louisiana, just performer that had seen everything. She's like, oh, I've had lots of husbands. And go ahead.
So do you know what other character she's played in something that we've seen
quite recently? She played Swan Sanche, the Amerlin seat in Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was honestly pretty fun to watch her have something that's like decent to work with.
Yeah. I mean,
like honestly, she's got something to do here.
Yeah. She had a lot of range with this, and you could really feel that, especially with her interview or interrogation, I guess, with Poirot. Whenever, he's like, hey, can you take off the hat? And she was like, what's under here.
Yeah.
well, her niece objects, and she's like, he's not asking a question. He already knows what this is.
Yeah. Probably the weakest part for me was, and I've actually seen Emma McKay, who was Jacqueline.
Yeah.
I've seen her. She was in, I think, a Netflix series called Sex Education. She's like one of the main characters in that. And she did a fantastic job with that. This one, she felt like she just kind of only got one note for most of the film until pretty much at the end, where it was more of like a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing, to where like she was definitely acting to be more or less obsessive.
I thought she did crazy really well. There's a lot of people here who you could say were kind of one note, which is kind of
Armie Hammer is definitely one of them.
Yeah, but it's kind of necessary, right? You can only you need a core where you have some nuance, and the rest of it's there as stable pieces where what they are, because you have such a large cast to go through for a whodunit to get through. They all have to kind of represent who they are and stick to that throughout. And I think she did a really great job. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's totally fair,
because she had it down pat. She's crazy. So one that people neither of y'all hit on, and I was curious if you would, Russell Brand as Windlesham.
It was funny whenever we were started watching it, and like we saw the doctor, I'm like, is that Russell Brand? What is he doing here?
So I was actually looking at the cast and kind of scrolling down. I scrolled past his photo, and I stopped, and I scrolled back. I was like, who are you?
Was he in the film?
Yeah. I was like, oh, you're the doctor? Wait, you're the doctor?
Yeah, he did not look like Russell, like forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah, like what a 180-degree change. And I marked it as kind of a positive, because it's neat to see him do something that isn't,
just a joke.
Being him, basically. He was maybe a little too wooden for it. I think he was maybe trying a little too hard, but it is neat to see him in something that isn't kind of like a cast role. Typecast. There we go. Where he's just committed to, he's always going to be forgetting Sarah Marshall, Russell Brand. So,
okay, so we're going to move on to the score of the score.
Yeah, and who wants this one?
No, Joel can start, because he hasn't started a single thing.
I haven't. It's been terrible.
It's just a tragedy.
It's like we're trying to kill him.
Oh goodness!
In the review.
Oh boy, here we go. We're firmly in the second act. This is where somebody gets bumped. So I gave the score an 8. I thought that, generally speaking, the orchestral arrangements evoked the feeling of being in Egypt.
Oh yeah.
And they were very sweeping. There was a lot of dramatic tension, especially before the murder occurs, to where we talked about how the cinematography was pointing to, remember, don't get comfortable, someone's gonna die. The music was also doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that is really, really fun when that's executed well, as this was. There were no themes that I can point to.
There weren't any like leitmotifs or any callbacks or anything.
And that is a style choice, which theoretically one should not punish them for, but I have done so.
Wow.
Because like in order to really push past an 8 in my mind and get to the upper echelons of being, this is amazing, I want to be humming that a few weeks later and not know why I'm humming it.
Yeah,
you know,
you need something that punches through.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Or something that basically brings you so far into the story that even if it's not something like Dune that you can just like hum when you're just walking around. But yeah, so so
maybe you need some instruments along with you, but you know,
just bring your didgeridoo. It'll be fine.
just bring the sandworm along with you. It's fine. It's just vibrating.
God.
But yeah, okay, so I guess I'll go. I also gave it an 8, and Joel took every single point that I had, literally every one. Yeah, because basically,
so it's my turn to go.
Yeah, essentially, I just said that there was no use of leitmotifs, there was no callbacks, which is generally why I kind of knocked it. But the actual score was pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Like especially those really big wide open CGI shots of Egypt. It really did feel like it elevated the relatively poor CGI into something a little bit more than what it probably should have been.
Yeah, they had that moment of what did they do in Lord of the Rings? Because it was all CGI, right? Like, how did they make? Oh, the music was good. Oh, you put something in there, man. Do something.
Yeah. Well, and the music was really good.
That was.
Yeah. You can go, Joel or Steven.
Oh no, I've been demoted. That wasn't demoted. Well,
I'm gonna go wrap myself in bandages.
So y'all,
I got burned.
Y'all both handed out 8s for, kind of some dings here about the lack of the leitmotif. Nothing really to drive it up there. And I see your points, and I looked at this and said, I gave it a 9.
Ooh.
Okay.
And I knew this was probably going to happen because while I agreed that the orchestra, the kind of the background stuff is really good and it does a good job of selling tension, right?
Yeah.
That was, and especially in points where
with a murder mystery, you have to build tension.
Yeah.
Well, and because we've already referenced Dune, you have the sandworm devouring the crawler. Like that is a very obvious danger. And like, yes, it should be tense. You almost don't need music there to sell tension. Whereas this, it's a casual conversation about a contract. You need the music there to hit and tell you, hey, this is a pressure point. And they did that.
Yeah.
So that came through. But I think for me, what pushes it up is the use of the bluesy music.
Oh man,
the
it was
blues
so good.
and the jazz pieces.
I was
in there.
going to give you that one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I figured I would probably still have it out there for me. But yeah, that for me, because I love some jazz.
Well, and
it was always going to hit.
And just the actual, I mean, like her voice was just fantastic.
Great, yeah. But for that scene and that setting as a in movie music, right? Not something that's just occurring for the audience. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Because it's perfect for the people who are consuming it, perfect for her reason for being there. So in the book, she's actually a novelist.
Oh.
Yeah. So
no, I'm glad that they made that change.
Yeah, no, I think it's much more interesting, right?
Well, because music, I mean, music is so important to everyday life. It is one of the core communicators for everyone.
Well, and especially that era where there's still oppression and overt oppression going on. One of the avenues for success was through music, right?
Yep.
Like that's something that actually really fits it very well.
Yeah.
Especially going to France, essentially somewhere that's a little more forward thinking, I guess, for the time. But yeah, no, the music just hits so well. So
well, and it also plays into like those kind of prejudices and everything plays into possible reasons why they would maybe be interested in murdering Gal Gadot.
Well, or also, why do you want to bring them along? Why do you want to ensure that they come along with you? Well, it's easier to throw suspicion on them than it would be on the rich white lady or whatever, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it plays in really well for all that. But ultimately, the music that we gained from it is totally worth it. From that first scene, very crime noir feel.
Yeah,
him going into the jazz bar, he gets his desserts, and you get a little bit about him, but then you just have this music going, just, oh yeah, this is what I'm here for.
Yep.
So moving forward now into the plot. This is a whodunit, people. The plot is
pretty much the main part.
Kind of important.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who hasn't gone first lately?
I guess me?
Yeah,
You?
go for it.
No, I don't
Go
know.
for it.
So I give it an 8.
Okay.
I thought, so, kind of like I said earlier, during performance, there was a lot of times where I was, genuinely trying to figure out who the murderer could be.
Yeah.
And, going through all of the information that we have had so far up until, basically the final reveal was, I don't know who it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a pretty smart guy when it comes to like picking up on like little hints and clues and everything. And I thought they did a fantastic job at keeping you in the dark with just enough information and just enough potential guilt that you could throw onto people that you've seen of like, oh yeah, it's totally him, And I thought it was great. The big thing that really pulled me out, and this is probably more of a Stephen answer / question, is basically the double suicide at the end. Could a 22 actually do that with that small
going through center mass?
That would be so hard.
Because it would have to not have nicked any of the ribs.
That's kind of my thing.
Yeah,
if it went through like all just essentially quotation mark meat or flesh.
Yeah, and reaching around another person and pointing the gun back at yourself the way that shot was made, it is so hard to aim.
Yeah.
No, that's a film thing. Like there's, because if you think about shooting through his back, okay, that's a decent amount of muscle, right? Then you have to hit presumably a large artery or the heart. Well, at that point you guarantee rib cage. And then in order to get to her, you have to get through her rib cage. Like there's
to provide a fatal shot for
so
both.
correct me if I am wrong, but isn't there a double suicide at the end of the book as well?
I don't know. I haven't. See, I looked for differences, but I haven't read it.
So I think that there was and people, you know what, listeners, absolutely lambast me and correct us. But I think that there was a double suicide in the book, and I think that she shot through his head into hers or something. So it was the heads involved.
And that would be totally possible.
Believable.
Yeah.
Because well,
it's still hard with a 22.
And I don't know what weapon was used in
the book.
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, even in the movie, there is a 45.
If there was a 45, no question.
Yeah. I don't know that you could actually reach around someone and still
shoot
pull the trigger. Like I don't think
you'd have to use your thumb, and you have to
hold it backwards. But that's such a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But at least then the power would be there, right?
Mm. But that was really the biggest thing that I got, because I was watching it and I was like, okay, well, they're clearly like they're both pretty mentally deranged at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way out is for them to just die.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever she shoots him, I was like, but that was a 22.
Yeah. Now, you could make the argument. So because the way the gun's set up, I believe, is it's kind of like a pop canister. So it has 4 rounds in it.
I think it has 2.
Mm-mm.
No,
2 of 4. Yeah, they do make a point about how many bullets have been used.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm pretty sure.
You're right.
It's a 4 barrel. So you could maybe make an argument that if you just pop all those off, he's definitely dead.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like there's no, and like at that point, it's so much power in one place. Maybe.
Yeah, I
don't know. That's it. It was questionable. Yeah, but for what it was, I actually didn't like jump all over it. I just kind of was like, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still gave it an 8. Like the rest of the film, I absolutely loved for like the plot, because like it absolutely kept me guessing and trying to figure out who it was. And it's one of those things where, as you get further on in the film, you hit these kind of moments where you're just like, well, at this point, because of the people that they've interacted with and stuff, it really could only be like maybe 1 or 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then, then you have stuff that exonerates them from earlier murders that, that kind of push it in different directions. And they did a good job with that, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to jump in after this, because Andrew was, talking about how it kept him guessing and all this other. I gave plot a 7 because it didn't keep me guessing.
Well, fine.
I know. And like,
I am a simpleton. I'm sorry.
No. So I was saying is, I don't want to make that kind of thing. It kind of felt, so it rode this weird line of sometimes you have to make things kind of obvious for the viewer that isn't obvious for the characters, right? So then you have this, we have a clue of what could be going on. And a lot of times you need that as either misdirection or it needs to just be some small part of it. And they didn't do a great job with that. I think they made it a little too obvious. And then when you have the moments that are kind of obscure where the genius detective picks up on it and we maybe don't, like it was there, but maybe we missed it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think they missed on that a little bit where some of his accusations felt unearned, especially like the whole, like, oh, you made the attempt at the temple with a pickaxe wedging off a piece of the top of the temple. Like, there's no way to know that. That was pure, just a speculative thing. I don't think anyone ever gave anything that could have given us away. He wasn't outside to see it.
And counterpoint on that, prior to that accusation, he had been going around and just throwing outrageous accusations in people's
maybe that's
faces
just one that lands
as a strastrategy to see how they would react.
Right.
So, like, you know,
well,
you can make an argument.
And with that too, like, because the scene of him trying to get her to sign the contract happened right before that.
No, it did.
And so,
but there's no, theoretically, if the contract is meant to be a trap, then there's no benefit for him killing her, even accidentally killing her prior to that contract being signed.
I mean, totally fair.
So my big throws, I guess, for this was, well, they had the whole thing about, oh, well, she keeps showing up where we are, right? And initially it's like, oh, that could be him. It could be the maid, right? Because theoretically she should know the travel plans, right? So those are two big, who's like bringing her in, right? And then it shifted when they go to the boat.
Yeah.
Because Simon is the one who says, we're doing the boat, right? Hey, I got the speedboat. We're going out to the boat. This is our thing. And then it's like, well, she got a ticket beforehand. Okay, well, it has to be him because he's the only one that pushed them to go to the boat. Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
So
I guess I didn't pick up on that.
So then they had the whole thing about the red paint, which as soon as they said, oh, well, I'm missing my red paint. I was like, well, there's a murder.
That one
factor.
for sure was a little too heavy-handed.
And then when he is initially shot by her in the leg, as soon as he falls on the sofa and grabs his leg, he has a napkin in his hand.
Yeah. So you know,
well, I mean,
immediately,
I picked that up on there.
That one. But the thing is, that actually led me off on a red herring too, because I was like, okay, the doctor has inspected him. The doctor has to be in on it.
See, that got me a little too, because I guess it's not really a performance thing. It kind of was weird to have the doctor be like, throw out the forensic details of like, oh, well, there's, you know, like I was like kind of like expecting the detective to be the one making those, because that's not necessarily a doctor's purview.
I mean, well, if he was a war doctor, he
went like all around to like poor
so I mean,
areas,
like
and maybe
he'd possibly see gunshot wounds.
Yeah, you can throw it. I just would have thought that maybe there would have been a little better interaction between Poirot and himself there.
Yeah.
But you know, that's what it is. It just, to me, that initial string of things, and then when they put it together at the end, felt a little absurdist of him like running down the whole length of the boat to murder his wife, to run all the way back down the length of the boat. And it's like, I get that you could probably cover the distance. It's not that big a boat, but god dang, I bet that was loud.
Well, you know, if you had all of this kind of chaos going on, then, you know, people wouldn't notice it hypothetically.
In theory,
but I do agree that him, you know, basically running the length up and down the boat was probably a little much.
And then time to shoot myself in the leg, and then, you know, like lay here for a doctor's inspection and not just be like sweating because I just sprinted a 300-meter run in the desert.
Well, you can be out of breath and it be totally passed off as shock. I'm in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
So I gave the plot an 8.
Okay.
I generally agree. I'm a little less on the details that you mentioned. I do agree on the red paint. That one was kind of like that was in big, the face. Yeah. I thought in general, the kind of touching on the themes of the film, it was really interesting how much they leaned into kind of showing the excesses of the obscenely wealthy angle of it, because it wasn't just we're living a glamorous lifestyle and we have rented out this boat. It was the way that it was presented was, we can throw all of the booze on the boat in the river. It doesn't matter, because money is just nothing.
Is irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a really interesting theme that they harped on a lot throughout the film that I don't think is in the original piece.
I don't
at least not as an overt theme. And so that was really interesting. It really colored the emotional experience for me.
Well, and it brought the maid to the fore,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Especially with her having the initial scene with the Tiffany's necklace where she's kind of halfway trying it on. It's the kind of wealth she's never really going to touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she has that moment with it, and this could be my
This could be
life,
me,
right?
yeah.
This is what I'm surrounded by all the
Mhm.
time, but I'm not allowed to participate in it. So you can definitely see the angle, right? Of well, we're going to blame the butler for this murder,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and then it even kind of hammers down like after she gets, or after Gal Gadot gets murdered, and then they're kind of interrogating her, and basically she reveals that that Lizzie had essentially paid off
Lynette.
Yeah. Has basically paid off one of her suitors just because she didn't want her to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was like, she could have just given that to me in a dowry or, something, and that literally could have changed my life.
Yeah.
And it's in that kind of thing, especially for essentially a servant at that time, is just such a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry, I don't.
Yeah, no, you can continue.
No, yeah. So that was really, it took what was otherwise a solid whodunit with some really interesting character connection and growth in the detective protagonist, and then also slapped on an intriguing dose of social commentary on there that I just wasn't expecting. And so that was like an extra layer of, I like that.
Yeah.
And then other than that, my main complaint, as much as I really liked the flashback and getting a little bit of insight into Poirot's neuroses and allowing him space to grow, and by the end of the film decide that it is worth taking a chance on human connection, the scar on his lip being the reason for the mustache and the visual design of said scar was really poor.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan.
For one thing, the scar that they had in the two scenes in which it was present was larger than the mustache.
Yes,
correct.
Would not have been covered by that mustache. And two, if you destroy skin to that degree,
it doesn't grow hair.
It doesn't grow hair.
Yeah. So the when we were watching it, and like not even like the first scene after he reveals that his whole face is scarred, Holly Liz just says, but he can't grow a mustache.
Yeah.
He has all the scar tissue.
Yeah.
And then next scene, big mustache.
Yep.
And like you could almost make the argument that he's like let some of what's above the scar kind of grow down to cover it, but then it just looks really like way more weird than what he had. What he had, I was like, I could totally pull that off. Lauren would kill me, but I could totally do it.
You have the most fantastic mustache.
Oh man, I would.
Fantastic's not the right word. It's fabulous.
I would.
Well, it's like a two-tiered mustache.
Yeah.
Like it flares out and then goes down and flares back out.
Yeah. Or if I have a little like multi-tier wedding cake from mustache. So
I mean, there was a dude that made a bird cage out of his own beard.
It's true.
He
was the bird.
A little horrifying.
It did exist. It has happened.
You can look it up.
There are beard
I know.
competitions.
I know there are. I know. Believe
I'm
me.
sure there are mustache competitions as well.
There are. There absolutely are. Anyways, back to the thing we're reviewing.
We're reviewing the mustache.
So maybe some positive from me. I really like the bit where you can see Poirot figuring out the way the blood splattered from when the maid was murdered.
Yeah.
And kind of placing his hand, because I felt like while there were some elements of him listening to conversations and the bit with the ledger that kind of gave you some clues as to what he's doing as a detective, for the most part, the audience, outside of like the interrogation technique, didn't really get a lot of like detectiving. They didn't really get a moment
to see
of
him thinking through.
There wasn't a lot of detecting of things.
And then he had that moment. I was like, okay, cool. That is concrete. I can look at this and say, he's saying someone this height was standing here because it interrupted the blood splatter.
Well, so from my understanding, Poirot is basically the same detective level as like Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
To where he has the very same like neurotic level of attention to detail. Well, where he basically essentially has an eidetic memory.
So the issue there is with Sherlock Holmes, you always have Watson there to ask him how.
Yeah.
And then he tells him, and now we as the audience know. Poirot doesn't have
a foil.
a sidekick to play off
Well,
of.
in the David Suchet representation, they gave him a Watson. Like they literally gave him a Watson.
Because they have to.
Yeah.
So it's more of a challenge on the directing and the cinematography to have him in a scene and then focus the viewer's eye on the key point, right? And I think they didn't always do a great job with that. They did in the specific scene I'm referencing that hit, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. There's one. Like I've been looking for these things throughout the movie, and I haven't been getting them, and it's kind of concerning because it means that when he does his big reveal, it's not going to feel very earned, which is kind of how I felt. Let's see, another nitpick. So Book gets shot with the 45, right?
Yeah.
And I rewound it. It's definitively the 45 muzzle.
Yep.
Because I questioned it because the wound he takes is just, it looks just like the 22. And yeah, I get it. You got to make your rating and it can't be gory PG-13. You can't just blow his head off or something. Like that's not going to fly. But well, then just shoot him in the chest.
Yeah.
Like do something else. You don't have to put this perfect little bullet through his
throat,
through his larynx, so he can't keep talking. Just shoot him in the chest. That felt weird, especially because again, having looked at it and knowing that that's not something that happens in the book per se. It's not Book there. It's somebody else. I don't know if that person gets murdered or not, but still, like, why that? Just shoot him in the chest. And then we have this pursuit scene, right, where it's Jacqueline, but we don't know it. Yeah. She's firing the gun and you hear it run out, right? Click, click, click.
Yep.
And then she throws it down. Well, then in the final scene where he does the reveal, he has it and he fires it off. It's like, did you go to the other dude and be like, yo, I need to reload this? Like, what?
Well, no, it's entirely possible that someone on the boat, like maybe a servant or the captain or something, has ammunition available for a 45.
And it's 1911. It's really common.
Yeah, like I was going to say, it's a relatively common caliber of sidearm for security-ish purposes. Yeah, well, especially around that time.
It's the U.S. military standard issue, so therefore it's just all over the world because it's going through the U.S. military.
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah. It threw me off because I thought it was going to be a big plot point that it's empty, right? I was ready for a clue, 1 + 2 + 1 + 3, right? Yeah. kind of thing here. And that didn't happen. So that kind of threw me off. Like, it makes sense. Hey, I'm going to confront all these people in one room. I need a gun. But like, again, like, where'd you get the bullets from? Just give me something there. A little something. Like, have them all be shocked. I thought it was empty, right? Like, come on. So that's minor, but it's,
it's possible that it could have jammed.
And that's possible.
That seems weak.
I'm just making just random accusations.
So here. Just going off,
just seeing what your reaction is.
Going off my memory of it on the deck when he comes upon after it's been thrown down. I don't think it was actually empty. The slide wasn't back.
Yeah, the slide wasn't.
Yeah. It was just a prop gun sitting there. So. But that also wouldn't, if it was jammed, it would also be somewhere in the middle, presumably.
Well, I mean, the magazine could have jammed.
It could have. We can make these excuses all we want, but it was weird and just one of those things where they don't give you backing for it. And again, in this type of movie, a whodunit.
No, look. A gun is a black box. There is no way to know what goes on inside
how
that
it works.
thing.
It's magic, right? Magic.
Magnets. How do they work?
But it's just for these types of scripts where everything is really tightly written and they're throwing out clues to everyone and trying to give you these things. It just felt like kind of a miss to just have this, like what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
So that's my nitpicks. That's as much as I can give. Other than I really think it's funny. I totally just let it pass that she just double shot them with a 22. I was just like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
As you brought it up, I was like, yeah, they did do that.
So we continue to talk. Did you have anything else to add to plot, Joel?
I did. Oh, I thought that the conclusion with the double suicide was really satisfying from a character writing perspective.
I'm gonna go back and clip that. The conclusion of the arc with the double suicide was really satisfying. That's it. That's it. That's all I'm getting taken away from this whole episode.
Because you learn in that scene that your entire characterization of Jacqueline that you've gotten over this is an act, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, so she's not the crazy jilted lover. And then with that one action, she relays to the audience, no, I wasn't really acting that much.
Yeah.
And to me, that was really satisfying because she was the brains behind the operation. She was the will behind the operation. He was kind of a stooge, and he went out like one. And so,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like basically, my biggest part for that was just the fact that it was a 22.
Sure,
and it may not have been physically possible.
Mechanically, there were issues.
Yeah, but
conceptually, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, moving on to the entertainment.
Yes.
Of said film.
You want to go?
I'm sure. I guess.
Why not?
So I gave it a 9.
Okay.
I really enjoy murder mysteries
Yep.
because I like figuring it out and trying to see. Obviously, a second viewing will be a little bit of a harder sell if I'm watching it with people that already know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the entertainment now comes from watching it with people who haven't seen it that aren't familiar with what's going to happen.
You're like a book reader on the day that the Red Wedding episode was released.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Oh,
That was a good day.
Yeah, no, I mean it's one of those things where you kind of live vicariously through other people's enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
And so for that, like I would absolutely watch it again if it was with someone else that also enjoyed murder mysteries that hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I'll let Joel have final word here.
all right.
I gave it an 8, which is pretty high marks. I nitpicked a little just because it was kind of funny, but I like this type of movie because you can go back and rewatch it and you can look for other clues.
Yeah, and you get to pick out like, yeah, I remember. Yep, there it is, right there.
Because there was another thing where he got to kind of show off the brilliance about the nail polish, about recognizing that the maid forgot the nail polish, and she always wears red, so he had to steal the paint. And that was good because that, like, I'm not paying attention to her nails. It goes right past. So like the fact that they went back and highlighted her hand for you and that was cool. And seeing maybe a few other moments, if you can find them, I don't know if they exist or not, like either in the conversations or whatever else, is always kind of fun. And I mean, it was entertaining enough that I watched it and I was like, well, now I have to watch, Murder on the Orient Express because I really like the portrayal of Poirot here.
Yeah.
Even though I can't pronounce his name.
Poirot?
Poirot. I'm just keep butchering it. It's fine.
Poirot.
Poirot.
There you go.
Once again, that Paris cafe goer is just looking up. They can hear it. They're mad about it. Oh gosh. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty entertaining. The movie went on by, and I didn't ever have that moment of, gosh, how long is this thing?
Yeah, that's always a good feeling whenever you're watching a movie and you don't think about how long the movie is.
Yeah, Joel.
So I also gave it an 8.
Okay.
I think that in order to have a lot of rewatch value for a mystery, because most of the enjoyment comes inherently from discovering it for the first time.
Yeah.
You have to have extra elements in there that kind of hold it up on their own. And I think that this one had that in abundance. There was all of the great performances that we talked about. There were the interesting themes and the character progression for Poirot specifically.
Yeah.
I think in general, though, this did not reach the heights of tension that I would necessarily want from a movie of this pacing.
Yeah, that's fair.
And where it gets to the end of the film and like something like Dune or Blade Runner 2049, where you get to the end of the film and you're like, okay, I can breathe for the first time in 2.5 hours.
Or like a 1917.
Yeah, this one didn't have that. It was kind of more of like a chill.
And so I think that's an experience that I was missing from this one. And so that's the biggest thing that I would knock it for in terms of entertainment.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's something that I didn't necessarily pick up on that I needed. But now you said it, yeah, I kind of needed that. All right. Well, that is, I think, a pretty solid recap and review. And I believe that is all we have for this episode. So until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joel.
And every spoiler was intended. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you can support the show for as low as $1 at patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. We also have a Discord server and would love to have more people joining in the conversation. Links are in the description below. Thank you.